families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Families Divided TV. Tonight, we're going to have with us for the first time Grace Puchalski. As a mental health provider since 1993, Grace Puchalski is going to identify developmental needs of adolescents ages 12 to 19 and how the family and community system can stop the damage of parental alienation as it affects their well-being. We all play a part to help adolescents cope better and their families to reduce the severe, long-lasting negative consequences of parental alienation on all. This is going to be an episode that should help many of us, so I do hope you'll get a lot out of it. We're going to be right back with Grace Puchalski right after this important message.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hello, my name is Grace Puchalski. I am a clinical social worker in Syracuse, New York area, and I appreciate Family Access to allow me to talk today about adolescents and parental alienation. When I consider adolescents in this talk, it would be age group 12 to 18, and the typical adolescent. The atypical adolescent that has more needs cognitively, emotionally, and physically, they need even more support, and they still need our duty to care and protect them, provide, and do the right thing for them. They need relief in this parental alienation dynamic in the family. And Dr. Alan Blotsky phrased it pretty well that I've noticed in my practice. It is in his book of Silent Epidemic, Parental Alienation in 2022. I have found the same in my practice of over 30 years and have seen the damage. I have taken 5 years statistical just view of my cases from 2016 and 2020 that have had alienation in their situation, whether you're a child, a minor, adolescent, or an adult. 1 out of 5 I have found in my cases have had that involving my treatment with them. So I believe it's a pretty high percentage. What is parental alienation? I will talk about the manifestations of adolescent behavior and favorite parent or alienating parent or guardian that is using strategies to help the adolescent to reject their loving parent or guardian. So the behaviors, parental alienation behaviors, they are not just a light comment that maybe one parent may make about another parent or guardian. They become a pattern. It's an ongoing effort, pressure that the adolescent feels, and it can be mild, moderate, or severe. And unless it's stopped, that behavior grows like a tumor, and the person that suffers is the adolescent. So the alienating, or I will call it the favored parent, usually willfully, relentlessly, and vindictively tries to target the rejected or target parent, where they interfere and damage and poison the view and the relationship of the adolescent with their rejected parent. And eventually they reject the parent for unjustified reasons. And the attachment for the adolescent starts being eroded, and in severe cases, it is broken. And it's a lot more difficult for the adolescent and makes them suffer more. The alienating parent usually does their behaviors directly or indirectly to target and encourage the adolescent to reject the other parent, because it is an abusive behavior. So it's usually done in isolation and secret, and the adolescent is forced to keep that secret and forced to be very self-conscious of following the control of the favorite and alienating parent. Dr. Gardner lists several manifestations of alienated children. In my case, I'm using the adolescent, where the adolescent would start refusing visits for no justified reason with the rejected parent. They may start behaving disrespectfully and sometimes even abusively to the rejected parent. And sometimes it's even in public, where they directly start rejecting their parent in public activities. They criticize, belittle, they fail to communicate with their parent about important information, acknowledge their parent for special holidays. They even refuse to accept any cards or gifts or offers to help, and even for counseling or guidance from their parent. They defy their supervision and authority because they usually insist that the only authority and supervision they will follow is the favorite alienating parent's authority. They may make false allegations against that rejected or target parent, and deny any prior loving relationship support with that parent prior to alienating starting. And they ultimately feel that this parent is unwelcome and unwanted. They remove also any pictures or memorabilia about the rejected parent. They usually have, the adolescent has weak, frivolous reasons for this unnatural behavior and rejection. They lack ambivalence and just have opinion of disdain and behavior of disdain, that there's nothing good about that rejected parent. Or in the past or in the future, there will be nothing good. They become an independent thinker, and they insist that their own thoughts and criticisms are their own and not coming from the favored parent. So there's a denial of that, even though in actuality, the favored parent is putting it out there either directly or indirectly. They are encouraged to show ultimate support, ultimate loyalty to only one parent, especially in conflict and they rarely never side with the target parent, even in conflict. They lack guilt. Usually the adolescent lacks guilt. They do not show any remorse for their cruel or exploiting behaviors toward the rejected parent, which does not allow them to have empathy for the alienated parent and for others. So their moral values, their having a conscience gets affected, and it sets them up for a negative relationship dynamic in the future while they're in stress with others. And especially when they're in a risky, threatening behavior, they start having difficulty knowing that there is a threat of harm to them. They continue stories or borrow scenarios to tell about the rejected parent and to further vilify the rejected parent and show others how bad they are. It's a campaign of denigration, and usually those views, those descriptions are the views of the alienating favorite parent. The extended family does get pulled into that behavior, so the animosity spreads to the rejected parent's family, friends that once were supportive and so present in this adolescent's life. This is such a big loss to the adolescent, and they're many times unable to express it, yet they feel it. Some of the strategies that the alienating parent or favorite parent uses, some of the strategies are listed from the book written by Amy Baker and Paul Fine, Surviving Parental Alienation. Their strategies usually are ongoing, and they usually are increased in intensity. One of them is bad-mouthing the other parent, communicating without any information about the adolescent, which is usually stonewalling or not giving the important information about the adolescent, about activities of the adolescent, important school, medical documentation. They also make contact so difficult for the adolescent with the rejected parent. And symbolic communication is interfered upon, also such as cards or videos, or even acknowledging that parent in an important way. They interfere in that. They force the child, the adolescent, to choose. Sometimes they bribe them, and they encourage withdrawal of love toward the rejected parent, which the adolescent wants to be unconditional in their caring, but they encourage the opposite, where the adolescent cannot see the rejected parent as loving. They tell the adolescent that the rejected parent is dangerous and does not love them. They force them to say no to inviting them to activities to spy on. They encourage them to spy on the target parent, keep secrets, using the first name of the parent rather than calling them mom and dad. In a step family situation, they would pressure the adolescent to call the step parent a mama or a dad. And they sometimes even try to change the name of the adolescent, especially when it has any association to the target parent. They ultimately cultivate the adolescent to be dependent on them and still indispensable, creating a pathological enmeshment where the adolescent wants to be independent, wants to separate, but in this situation, they are prevented from that. They're not learning critical thinking skills, and their confidence is still affected because they're grieving. They're needing to survive in a hostile environment, created usually by the alienating parent. So their own opinions, authentic voice, and the ability to be in touch with their own genuine feelings, love, and the need for the target parent is made impossible, close to impossible. One thing that I have heard a lot is that the child, the adolescent, has refused to see the other parent, and the alienating parent uses that as a justifiable reason, like they don't feel like seeing them or going there, even on scheduled visit per court orders. So ultimately, the parent that is not doing their job to encourage to follow schedule, visitation schedule, to be responsible, to have a relationship with that target parent, with that rejected parent. The adolescent is made to have an option of having the target parent in their life. So that alienating parent is either encouraging the disconnect and the rejection and the lack of visitation, or they're unable to parent and be responsible and use their parental authority like they use, for example, to have the adolescent go see a doctor. The adolescent need to even go to school functions that they're supposed to attend school. So this conflict this adolescent has within them, again, their authentic voice, authentic needs, the conflict takes priority over the adolescent's needs, and having loving people in their life is blocked. The conflict that the parental alienation causes for the adolescent, the favored parent interferes with their ability to handle the conflict, any disagreements, any conflict in a healthy way. An adolescent who does not live in a parental alienation, a dynamic, a home life, they're usually able to comfortably rebel, disagree, and they're usually able to learn from their parents how to handle it. However, in parental alienation, the resolution is blocked by the alienating parent. Adolescents don't have an opportunity to mend because if they're not going to see the target rejected parent, how are they going to mend and talk about the conflict? So the alienating parent teaches avoidance and rejection and an adversarial way to handle conflict. Or cut off people generally. If I don't agree with you, I'm going to cut you off. And that causes inner pressure in the adolescent, which encourages them to release that pressure and tension in a very unhealthy, acting out way, where they're hostile, sometimes even very dangerous to the target rejected parent, or sometimes to their siblings. They usually bully, intimidate, and act in a hostile way, and which is modeled by the favored parent, if they cannot manage their anger. So temper outbursts are common, and many act out by avoiding their responsibilities at home or school. Parents need to walk their talk, monitor, supervise, show following through and consistency in a healthy home. Yet the alienating dynamic teaches the opposite. Things are unpredictable, inconsistent, and usually it's dependent on the moods and behaviors of the alienating parent. Some male adolescents and even female adolescents get into power struggles where they want to dominate, and it's healthy to compete and want to elevate yourself a little more because they're trying to feel good about themselves. Yet in this situation, they will cross the line and act out on that tension and hurt the target parent and hurt themselves with inaccurate view and confrontations with the target parent. So when an adolescent confronts the target parent with information that is adult information, it's not accurate or very emotional and angry, it's so important for the target parent not to argue, to listen, to hear their perspective, offer to think about it, sometimes let them know that the information they shared with them is not accurate. It's not okay for them to know this information, that there's more to this story. And when they're older, they may know more. So simple words, simple facts, less emotional reaction is usually works better because the adolescent has so much pressure, inner pressure and tension within them already. Their brain, of course, is not adult brain, and many people assume it is. Neuroscience research at Harvard Mental Health newsletter in 2005, Adolescents, the title Beyond the Raging Hormones, identifies that their adolescents' brains, their reasoning capacity is weaker than the adult. Even though they are capable of some formal planning ability, their prefrontal cortex in the brain is not fully developed until 20s. Judgment, which involves judgment, good judgment, problem solving. Their emotional centers in the brain, in the limbic system, are affected because they at times may have less control over their actions because of their emotions as they're seeking emotionally charged, intense, novel experiences. Parental alienation does affect the body. The chronic tension, the negative consequence on their body is great. We can't see it, but it does affect them. And it comes out with getting sick, their mind being more confused, concentration's impaired, they're numb emotionally, their self-confidence, especially in the younger adolescents, is less than they would be able to have because the pressure is so great on them. They turn to behaviors, risky behaviors, to soothe themselves sometimes from the tension, such as acting out, going to nicotine, which is so addictive and so powerful, more difficult as they get older to even kick the addiction of nicotine. Also, marijuana use has been higher than alcohol use in the recent years and puts them at risk. If they're using marijuana, they're more at risk for psychosis. The brain is traumatized, and main reactions mentally, they have anxiety, depression, and then sometimes oppositional defiance and conduct disorders come up. Late adolescents still need the support and guidance of adults around them, so they're not full-fledged adults. And they deserve to have loved ones present without any interference to complete their thriving toward adulthood task. Again, there's 2005 adolescents used to be looked at as deserving capital punishment and deserving execution in high crime act. But in Missouri in 2005, the Supreme Court deemed 16 and 17-year-olds as not be eligible for capital punishment and execution. And that is all supported by the professionals that work with adolescents. The motivations of the favored parent are usually efforts for revenge, money, or they may have a personality disorder, or just to boost their ego. So the adolescent development is disrupted in times where the favored parent infantilizes them and makes them more dependent on them. And opposite, when the adolescent is put in a position of feeling over-empowered, adultified, it also puts them at risk mentally. And to act out in risky behaviors leaves them unsafe and unprotected without any of their needs to be met and protected and provided, and the guidance that they desperately need from the target parent and from all adults around them. So in treatment, what I have found when I have met with adolescents who have been in the parental alienation dynamic, they're usually very hesitant to trust, to talk, to share the secret that they're supposed to keep. Sometimes what I have seen is that when the adults are showing them that they're doing the right thing, the adolescents more likely to feel safer and more open to trust and to share and to take care of learning how to manage their anxiety, their depression, or just to problem solve and get more conflict management skills and how to learn how to behave better and unlearn some of those behaviors encouraged by the favorite alienating parent. So the bond with the target parent in treatment is needing to be rebuilt, and trust and respect needs to be relearned, reinstated, and the target and rejected parent who needs to show and has shown compassion and understanding and has been good enough and worthy enough, doing their best they could to be in the adolescent life, that target parent will encourage the adolescent to be absolved of that guilt because they carry so much guilt for trying to hurt their prior loving parent. And the responsibility for some of the behaviors they need to accept. The adolescents need to accept, especially if they've caused harm to the target parent. In treatment, we can never give up hope on them, even though the high level of conflict in the alienating situation is so hopeless sometimes. Because the alienating parent, if they are able to be reformed or rehabilitated, they first need to stop the damaging behaviors and make an effort. And sometimes in severe cases of parental alienation, court needs to be involved and mandate treatment and monitor the progress of the rehabilitation. And eventually, there are successful family situation where this alienating favorite parent is going to admit to the adolescent, I was wrong to you, for you to allow you to treat your other parent in a bad way, to also make you believe that this target rejected parent is unsafe. And I was wrong to encourage you to be exclusively with me. When we assess families and adolescents, it's so important to look at the patterns of the behaviors of the adolescent, of the family dynamic of the alienating parent, and consult with people that are more educated or aware of parental alienation, because there's so much to know. That's why I'm so grateful to all the experts and professionals in the field. And the diagnoses of parental alienation, it's not clear in DSM-5 that parental alienation is a diagnosis to use, because it's not there. But there are other diagnoses that apply to the situation. So we need to use them, because many professionals avoid or do not know enough about parental alienation and choose not to use them. One of them is child psychological abuse, confirmed pathogenic parenting. Another one is child affected by relational distress. Another one, parent-child relational problem. Another diagnosis that has also been used and is delusional disorder persecutory type, because when the alienating parent persuades the adolescent to believe in false information and feel almost paranoid toward the target parent and act out their paranoia, this diagnosis qualifies for either the alienating parent or the adolescent. Another diagnosis is partner and spouse abuse. It's very important to note that. So psychological test questionnaires have been developed to fine-tune the diagnosis, to help us understand what's going on in the system. And we as providers treating the adolescent or the family cannot leave this dynamic or diagnosis out of the goal treatment planning. Even if you're a worker, Salvation Army worker or social services worker or any human services or any provider, even in an educational setting, it's important to keep that as part of the assessment, because more damage can be done if we leave the alienation out of the treatment plan, which means the alienating parent continues their behaviors and the goals are not met. And indirectly, the adolescent suffers and the target parent suffers. So as providers, we cannot have a casual attitude about what's happening, the conflict, because it is calculated and willful behavior and non-compliance about court orders, but non-compliance as a parent to have a responsibility, and it ultimately leaves the adolescent helpless and powerless in this situation. The boundaries that professionals need to keep are critical, because it's so easy to get caught up and overstep our boundaries of knowledge and to pick one side over the other. So it's so important to withhold judgment, be open to getting more information, more sources, and curious, and withhold judgment, and not polarizing the situations, good or bad, because there is truth. There is true information if we look for it. So professionals continually, I'm hoping, can do due diligence in getting the real picture of the family situation and do something about it, because parental alienation is psychological maltreatment and educational and medical neglect, because one parent refuses to provide for those needs to the adolescent. We cannot, as professionals, compare and assume our family situation and our upbringing or our adolescent as being the same as the adolescent going through this, because it's like comparing apples and oranges. Many want the status quo to continue in court, and in other situations, there's a fear of change, especially if this alienation is hurting the adolescent. And it prolongs the suffering and the damage of the adolescent. So I'm hoping that we never, and I try not to use absolutes, but never put a minor, adolescent, pre-adolescent, in choosing a position between either parent, even if it's not a typical adolescent who has many impairments, disabilities, still that's even more damaging when we put them. Yes, they have a view, and unsolicited view, we can hear it. However, we do not put them in a situation of choosing sides and choosing a decision about adult decision about their welfare and where they need to be. And many professionals don't want to get involved because of the conflict dynamic. They do not want to get involved because many of them do not understand or choose not to get information. And so it's important to have understanding and compassion and find a gray area and still do our job to see all members of the family in a respectful, helpful way, because it's so easy to join one side. And usually that side is more powerful, which is the favorite parent, the alienating parent who is more convincing. So they present themselves as convincing, calm, cool, confident, charming. It's easy to go along with that because the target rejected parent is the one that's been going through ongoing suffering, rejection, and needing to stand up for themselves, needing to show that they are a parent to this adolescent, and they still have a lot of good to offer. So violence dynamic, emotional violence dynamic is counterintuitive. It does make no sense. And unless we're in it, walking in the shoes of the adolescent, we really do not know for sure what is actually going on unless we have more information. And I wish that adolescents, just like pre-adolescents, got the same attention from the social services, human services system, and support and care, because the assumption is they are almost adults, and sometimes adults, parents, and the system gives them too much information or too much freedom, and their brain can't manage it. So they need healthy parents. And that's what I coach and encourage my families to have is healthy behaviors so that they can do, adolescents eventually can do their job, training, work. As they move on into adulthood, the parents need to stay active, be involved in their lives, ask them about themselves, take time to encourage and persist in enforcing for them to take care of things that they're supposed to. And acknowledge, be with them, acknowledge how hard it is when there is disagreement. And still keeping the dialogue open so they can feel connected. Because in most situations, parental alienation, many adolescents have a secret wish to be rescued from the conflict between adults. And they want the adults to look out for them and do the right thing because they're unable to parent themselves. And many are put in a position to do so. So if there's anyone that has any questions or would like to have more reference information, please contact me at actnowforchild@gmail.com. And again, thank you, Family Access, for allowing me to share some of my viewpoints about adolescence and parental alienation.
On our next episode of Families Divided TV, Dr. Lena Helblum Sjogren will talk to us about the rules of law and custody disputes.